You know, it's maybe easy to think of a DUI as just, well, a mistake, something you regret the next morning, right?
Hmm.
But what if the reality, especially here in California, is actually way more serious with consequences that can stick with you for years in ways you might not even expect? We're
Exactly.
not just here to say, don't drink and drive. Everyone knows that. We want to dive deep into the true impact of a DUI in California based on, a really close look at the state's laws.
Right. And our mission today is to go beyond that sort of basic understanding. We want to reveal the really extensive, lasting repercussions of getting a DUI conviction here. Because a lot of people, I think, underestimate just how serious it is. The legal side, sure, but also the professional, the financial, even the personal impacts. They can be profound, and they last.
Right. It's definitely not just about paying a fine and moving on. We're going to unpack how a DUI can create a permanent criminal record,
A huge one.
how it can seriously limit your job prospects, mess with your ability to drive, obviously, create these huge financial burdens, and even affect things like education and professional licenses. So yeah, get ready for some maybe surprising insights into just how serious this is.
Okay, so let's start right there with that misconception. The idea that a DUI is somehow like a minor thing.
Like a glorified traffic ticket, almost.
Yeah, exactly. But it's crucial, absolutely crucial, to understand that in California, driving under the influence is a criminal offense, period.
Not just a ticket.
Not just a ticket. It's a violation of the law that carries real weight, mainly because, well, impaired driving is incredibly dangerous for everyone on the road. Public safety is paramount here.
Okay, so a criminal record. That feels like the first really big takeaway. It doesn't just vanish, right? It follows you.
Precisely. A DUI conviction in California means a permanent criminal record. Now, there are some limited ways you might, down the road, try for an expungement.
Which is like sealing the record.
Sort of, yeah. A legal process to get it removed from easy public access. But generally speaking, this record becomes part of your history. It pops up in background checks for jobs, future court stuff, even professional evaluations. It's there.
And that's for any DUI conviction, even if it's your absolute first time, a misdemeanor.
Yes. Even a first-time misdemeanor DUI conviction carries pretty significant penalties and creates that permanent record we just talked about.
Okay.
The consequences, well, they can include hefty fines. You have to do mandatory DUI education programs.
Right, those classes.
Probation periods. You lose your license for a while. You often have to get an ignition interlock device and IID installed.
A breathalyzer in the car.
That's the one. And there's even the possibility, sometimes likelihood, of jail time.
Wow, okay. And if someone makes the same mistake again within a certain period, I'm guessing the system gets even tougher.
Oh, absolutely. This is where it gets really serious and highlights why it's not minor. California has this 10-year enhancement period.
10 years.
10 years. So if you get another DUI conviction within 10 years of a previous one, the penalties just skyrocket.
Like how?
Much bigger fines, longer jail sentences are possible, your license suspension is way longer, and depending on the specifics, you could even be facing felony charges.
Felony charges. Just for a repeat DUI, that really hits home that this isn't something you can just brush off.
Definitely not.
Okay, let's pivot a bit. How does this criminal record actually affect people's ability to, make a living, getting and keeping a job?
Yeah, this is an area where the lasting impact really surprises people. That criminal record, the DUI, it can be a major barrier to getting hired.
Even with those ban-the-box laws I hear about.
Right. California does have laws restricting when employers can ask about criminal history, usually not on the initial application. But
There's a but?
there's a but. Many industries and specific jobs are legally required to do thorough background checks later in the process. And that DUI conviction, it's likely going to show up then.
Okay, so it delays the question, but doesn't necessarily remove the obstacle.
Pretty much. And some professions are obviously super sensitive. Anything involving driving, clearly.
Sure.
But also healthcare roles, education, law enforcement, government jobs, and anything needing state or federal security clearance. A DUI can often be an automatic no, a disqualifier.
That makes sense for those fields. But what about, say, an office job, no driving involved? Could a DUI still be a problem?
Absolutely, yes. Even for non-driving jobs, an employer might look at a DUI conviction and see, well, potential irresponsibility, poor judgment. And that can definitely influence their hiring decision. It might even affect your chances for promotions later on. Employers often see it as reflecting on your overall reliability, your decision-making skills, things that matter in almost any job.
Right. So that criminal record really does cast a long shadow.
Okay, let's zoom in on the driver's license itself. That's obviously a huge part of daily life for most people.
It is, and this is where things get a bit complicated because a DUI arrest actually triggers two separate legal processes at the same time. They run in parallel.
Two processes.
Okay.
First, you've got the criminal court case. That's where you face the judge, potential fines, maybe jail time, and the court can order your license suspended.
Okay, the criminal side. What's the other one?
The other is an administrative action purely by the Department of Motor Vehicles, the DMV. And they can suspend your license too, completely separate from the court.
Ah, right. And I've heard about getting a pink slip during the arrest. What is that exactly?
Yeah, so when you're arrested for DUI, the officer usually takes your physical license and gives you this temporary paper license, often pink, hence the name pink slip.
Okay.
That slip does two things. It lets you drive temporarily, but it's also official notice that the DMV is starting its own process to suspend your license administratively.
And that DMV suspension can happen fast.
Very fast, often just 30 days after your arrest, unless you specifically request an administrative hearing with the DMV and actually win that hearing to challenge the suspension. It's a separate battleground from the court case, different rules.
So wait, your license could be suspended by the DMV before you even get convicted in court.
Exactly. That catches a lot of people off guard. Then, if you're convicted later in criminal court, the judge adds their own penalties. More license suspension, maybe that IID requirement we mentioned, the DUI classes.
Right.
For a first-timer, the court suspension is often 6 months, but you might be able to get a restricted license. That usually means you can only drive to work, school, the DUI program, and only if you have that IID installed.
The breathalyzer thing again? Oh.
Yeah, it's designed to stop the car if it detects alcohol on your breath, a preventative measure.
And for people who've had DUIs before, the license consequences must get much worse.
Oh, significantly worse. Repeat offenders are looking at much longer suspension periods. And in some situations, the DMV can actually revoke their license permanently.
Permanently.
Yeah. And it's especially critical for commercial drivers, truckers, bus drivers. A single DUI can mean a 1-year suspension of their commercial license. Multiple DUIs. That could be a lifetime ban. Career over.
That's devastating. Absolutely devastating.
Yeah.
And you mentioned overlapping penalties earlier. What does that mean? Can things stack up?
They can. If you don't act quickly and handle both the DMV side and the court side properly, you can end up with the DMV administrative suspension and the court-ordered suspension. Sometimes they run at the same time, sometimes one after the other. It can seriously mess up your ability to get around for a long time.
This is painting a really clear and frankly pretty grim picture. Let's talk money. The financial side. I know there are fines, but it sounds like that's just scratching the surface.
You are absolutely right. The financial hit from a DUI goes way, way beyond just the court fines. There's this whole cascade of other costs that pile up really quickly.
Okay, like what? What are these hidden costs people don't always think about?
Well, first, there's the DUI education program. Those classes aren't free. They can cost hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars. Then you've got administrative fees. The DMV charges fees. The court charges fees. If you need that ignition interlock device, the IID, you pay for installation plus monthly monitoring and maintenance fees.
Right, ongoing costs.
Big time. Then, your car insurance. Premiums almost always go way up, sometimes doubling or tripling, and that higher rate can stick around for years. Plus legal fees if you hire an attorney, which is really advisable. Maybe bail money up front, towing and impound fees for your car.
It just keeps adding up.
And don't forget last income. Time off work for court dates, maybe jail time, or just struggling to get to work if your license is restricted or suspended. It all adds up.
So when you tally all that, the direct costs, the indirect ones, what's a realistic ballpark figure for a first-time DUI in California?
Estimates generally suggest the total cost for a first-time DUI conviction often breaks the $15,000 mark, sometimes significantly more.
$15,000, wow.
Yeah. And that number climbs dramatically if it's a second or third offense. Then you might also be looking at restitution if there was an accident, property damage, injuries, maybe even civil lawsuits on top of the criminal case. The state really tries to make it financially painful to deter people, given the huge costs DUIs impose on society.
15 grand is, yeah, that's staggering. Something most people just don't have lying around. Okay, let's shift again. How does this affect someone's education or their professional standing, like through licenses?
Right, another area with potentially long-lasting effects. For students, say, in college or university here in California, a DUI conviction can lead to disciplinary actions from the school.
Like what?
Things like academic probation, suspension, even potentially losing scholarships or financial aid. Plus, some schools require you to disclose convictions when you apply or re-enroll, which could potentially hurt your chances of getting into certain programs.
So it can derail your education now and maybe limit options later. What about people already working who need a license for their job?
Yeah, professional licensing boards take DUIs very seriously. Think about lawyers, doctors, nurses, teachers, real estate brokers, contractors. Tons of professions require a state license.
And those boards find out about DUIs.
Generally, yes. They usually require licensees to report any criminal convictions, including DUIs. It's often part of the renewal process or just a general obligation.
And what happens then? What can the board do?
Well, a DUI conviction usually triggers an investigation by the board. And depending on the specifics of the case, the profession, the rules, the consequences can range. It might be a formal warning, probation, or it could go as far as suspending or even revoking their professional license.
So you could lose your ability to practice your profession.
It's a real possibility. Even if they don't revoke it, having that DUI on your record with the licensing board is definitely a red flag. You have to disclose it, be upfront, but it raises concerns for them.
It just really drives home how one mistake can spread out and affect literally every part of your career path. It sounds like trying to navigate all this, the court, the DMV, the job stuff, the licensing without help would be incredibly risky.
Absolutely. Which brings us to, the critical need for legal representation if you're facing a DUI charge in California. Trying to figure out these complex laws, the procedures, all these potential penalties on your own, you're just incredibly vulnerable.
So what can a good DUI lawyer actually do for someone in that situation? How can they help?
Well, an experienced DUI attorney knows the system. They can use different strategies to protect your rights and, frankly, your future. They'll look closely at the traffic stop itself. Was it legal?
Okay.
They'll examine how the field sobriety tests were given. Were they done correctly? They'll scrutinize the blood or breath test evidence. Was the machine calibrated? Was the sample handled properly? Any mistakes or protocol violations?
So they look for weaknesses in the prosecution's case.
Exactly. Challenging the evidence is often key.
Yeah.
If they can show the stop was bad or the tests were flawed or the BAC result isn't reliable, that can sometimes lead to getting the charges reduced, maybe to something less serious than a DUI.
Like reckless driving or something.
Sometimes, yeah. Or it could lead to alternative sentencing, maybe avoiding jail time. In some cases, if the flaws are serious enough, it could even lead to the entire case being dismissed.
So it's definitely not just about showing up and pleading guilty, hoping for the best.
Not at all. As we've spent this whole time discussing, right, the consequences of a DUI conviction are just so broad. They hit your career, your finances, your education, your freedom to drive, your reputation, everything.
Yeah.
Taking quick action, getting that experienced legal help right away. It's really crucial to protect yourself and make sure your rights are actually defended.
This has really been quite the deep dive into what a DUI actually means in California. It's crystal clear it is so much more than a minor traffic offense.
That really is the core takeaway, isn't it? A California DUI conviction brings these significant, long-lasting consequences. It just ripple out. They affect so many connected parts of your life or, the life of someone you care about. It's not just one thing. It starts a chain reaction.
Yeah, it really does. And reflecting on all this, the permanent record, the job hurdles, the license mess, the insane financial costs, the impact on education, professional licenses, it really makes you pause and think, doesn't it? Given just how far-reaching these consequences are, what kind of fundamental shifts, maybe in how society sees this or even in our individual choices, could possibly start to lessen this huge impact that DUIs have?